Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Reasonably Effective podcast. I'm Ted Types, as I join my Uncommon Fossil.
Hey, glad to be here and looking forward to talking about Pokemon TCG or perhaps imaginary Pokemon TCG, depending on how you want to frame it.
Yeah, because today we're taking a look at some really interesting custom cards submitted by you in my Discord server. And this is something that I've been doing for a little while. I will say most of these cards are actually pretty old. I recently went through them to look at, look through the older ones and kind of see what was going on. I have looked at them, but I hadn't looked at them in a while. There might have been some I missed as well, except for one is actually a newer card, which actually will be the first one we're taking a look at here today. But yeah, these are just custom cards. We're not necessarily judging them, but I will say, so I am making a quote like Hall of Fame or like the top cards submitted by you in my custom card, or it's not a custom card server, but it's mostly custom card stuff there. And I wanted to there's something I want to do with these potentially in the future. Not going to spoil it at this moment, and I don't know if I'm actually going to do it, but I would take a look at these in Uncommon Fossils here. Also, we've done some stuff where we looked at custom cards together. We're doing that again, and I think these cards are really cool. Do you think they're cool as well?
Yeah, there's interesting cards, and it raises some interesting questions, which is what I'm looking forward to a lot for today's discussion.
Yeah, I think a good custom card is a card that, when you look at a regular card, you're looking for cards to be a little simpler. Custom cards are going to be, I'd say, a little more complicated, pushing the rules some. Ultimately, custom cards aren't real cards. That's what kind of can make them interesting. And so I think all the cards we'll look at today definitely push the rules some. We want to talk about whether they push it too much. Sometimes they do something a little potentially problematic, unfun potentially, and also that we are taking a look at power levels. Some, I think they're all kind of fine. There are definitely some we need to raise questions about though. But overall, I'm really excited to hop into it. I don't know if you have anything to add before we get into the first card though.
No, I mean, I guess we're obviously considering it kind of how it would work in standard format. I guess a lot of them were printed in the past a little bit, so whether that's a factor or not. So everything might not be like how's it work in a Dragapult world necessarily. We'll kind of have to sort through that as we go through things, I think.
Yeah, and the first card we're taking a look here at this one's actually, I believe, submitted and made for this competition that I made, which was the cards that are essentially kind of inspired by the 30th Celebration set, and or I don't know, I guess inspired by Celebrations, the promos, which hopefully we'll see for the 30th Celebration set, but that is this Unknown Prism Star here. This card, where's the open image thing? I'm missing it. Where is it? Oh, I found it. There we go. So, Unknown Prism Star, obviously it's a Prism Star, which is not a mechanic we have in standard right now. So, Unknown Prism Star, again, being a Prism Star has this rule. It says you can't have more than one of. The rule's a little weird. You can have more than one Prism Star card in your deck with the same name, so you can have one of each. And then if it would go in the Lost Zone, you put it, or sorry, if it would go in the discard, you put it in the Lost Zone instead. So theoretically, it's a one-time use, fully there. Which actually I've heard some people say it should probably be a rule for the ace specs as well. I mean, it kind of is for some of them, but they are they don't use the Lost Zone. They have kind of clunky wording.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. So the Prism Stars haven't been in the game for a bit now. Are they coming back with this 30th celebration?
Oh, no. Or I don't know.
Okay.
I'm thinking about, with the 25th celebration, there were promos. There was
Yeah.
actually a Dragapult Prime, or it's just called Dragapult.
Okay.
And that was reusing an older mechanic on a newer Pokemon. This card actually doesn't do it. It's an older Pokemon with a it's not a current mechanic, obviously, but it is theoretically we could have gotten Unknown Prism Star. And then also in Celebrations, we had a bunch of cards that are, okay, I searched for it, and it's taking some time. But we had, reprints of older cards. So, for example, we had Level X Pokemon GXs. Those weren't reprinted into Standard, though they were reprinted. We didn't actually see Prism Stars in there. I believe the set of cards from the 30th anniversary that are in this set that again are reprints of older cards that aren't playable in Standard, don't include Prism Stars, but that's the kind of idea there.
Okay, all right. So they make the idea is they could reprint Prism Stars with these, but they wouldn't be a standard card. It would be a reprint of older cards. Not, which these reprints were where they were actually the older cards reprinted. They weren't changed text or anything like that.
Well, yeah, some of them were reprints, but then there were the promos, which is more so what this is supposed to be like,
Okay.
which were not reprints. They were older mechanics and on newer Pokemon, so they are new effects, kind of.
Okay, and anyway, enough of that. Get to the card because I do think this is a very interesting card. Unknown Prism Star. So why don't you get into what the card is?
Yeah. Oh, and this card was submitted by Weird Fishes as well. And this is a card which has, first of all, Smack for 1 darkness, doing 40 here. It also is also a darkness Pokemon, which is interesting. I'm actually not sure what type Unknown is in the games, but I think it's Psychic. And I think is it just Psychic? I don't know why it's darkness here, to be honest. Because in the TCG it's only Psychic, and it has
Okay.
a lot of cards. But regardless, then it has this ability, Cascade of Knowledge. Once during a turn, you reveal this card from your hand and discard it. Again, it goes to loss at that point. And then you discard the top card of your deck until you reveal a Pokemon. You place that Pokemon onto your bench, and then your opponent takes 1 prize card. This can be any stage. And so it can cheat out stage 2s as early as turn 1 here. Definitely an interesting card. I have like a bunch of stuff to say about this card. I think you do as well, but it's definitely pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting card, and for most of these Pokemon, we have a few non-Pokemon as well. But the Pokemon, they're really about abilities. I don't know that any of the Pokemon have attacks that are particularly meaningful with it, but interesting abilities. What this does, I'll just talk for a minute, is it's kind of like you're taking the unknown, you're playing it on the bench. You're not doing that, of course, but it's like you're doing that, and then you search for a card, or you start discarding cards. You get a Pokemon. Then the unknown gets knocked out, which would go to Lost Zone also, and then this new Pokemon replaces it on the bench. In a sense, that's what's happening, but it's not exactly that, because then things that stop abilities that knock you out, which obviously is part of the game now, to stop Dusknoir, that it wouldn't get impacted by that. So it's an interesting thing that the fact that you are doing it from your hand instead. That's an interesting aspect to the mechanics of this, as well as obviously you can control what's on top of your deck some, so that for you can control what gets into play with something like Cyphermatic code breaking or some other thing like that. So or stadiums or something like that. So potentially a very powerful card. And I think it's nice that they made it a Prism Star. It's only once over the course of the game can you do this. So because it is very powerful. So I think that was a good control making it a Prism Star card.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool there. It kind of reminds me of Tapu Koko Prism Star, which does not
Mm-hmm.
knock itself out but discards it from play. And then
Yeah.
obviously you guys Lost Zone there, or actually it might go straight to the Lost Zone, not get discarded here, or there. I don't remember, but this card, I believe, also the ability name Cascade of Knowledge, I believe, is a reference to the Magic mechanic Cascade. I'm not sure. It's somewhat similar, so that's my guess, but I'm not sure if that's
Okay.
true. And then this card also not having to play it because I wasn't even before you said it, which we talked about this a little before the podcast, but before you said that it's like knocking itself out, I wasn't even thinking about that. But one difference there, because functionally it's very similar, but you can't get like ability. Well, you could get ability locked in like expanded, but in standard you can't get ability
Right.
locked by Iron Thorns or something. Again, this isn't the power level is. I mean, I don't think it's too dependent on the era. It's a little hard to say what era is this supposed to be balanced for, but I don't think it matters too much there. But ultimately, I mean, you can, again, you were saying you can control it. I think if you don't control it, it's super random and kind of
Yes.
like it can legitimately be pretty bad. If you just hit like if you play this in say like Dragapult or something, you hit a Dreepy, that's terrible because you just gave up a prize. Um, Giving up prizes is not
Yeah.
good. I mean, theoretically, it could
No,
be good in specific situations, but not really.
right. I mean, occasionally you want to give up prizes. Not generally, you don't want to. And obviously, like with Slowbro and format, obviously with that deck, you're building it around controlling what's on top of your deck
Slowking.
Slow King. Sorry,
Yeah,
thank
we
you.
were talking about Slowbro earlier today.
Yeah, I was afraid I was going to confuse it, and I successfully managed to do that. So, but obviously the point is you can control what's on top of your deck, which you need to do with this. Of course, you wouldn't put it in the same deck. I can't imagine because You don't you want it being discarded, but there is the ability certainly to control what's on top of your deck, cheating out a stage two. And you get a stage two in play turn one, right? So I guess that if it's going to be too powerful,
Mhm.
which is always one of the questions, is it problematic that you could get a stage two into play turn one? Like you could be attacking now, say with Dragapult turn one, right? With Crispin Dragapult, and that is it going to be too powerful? It could have a limitation. You can't use this on your first turn.
Yeah, that might actually be good. When I think about it. Also regarding this card, you can't pop it as well. I mean, you can, but like it
Yeah,
doesn't like you can't use it then. So that's
right.
another thing with not like the wording between knockout and not. With the turn one like Dragon Ball thing, because that's probably the most powerful thing you can do with that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, it allows you to like you need to Crispin as you were saying, and then you also need to get Dragon Ball on
Yeah,
top of your deck, presumably using presumably Academy at night, and then you need it like in
yeah.
your hand to do that. It seems like a lot of pieces. It seems doable, but like I don't know. I mean, obviously Dragon Ball's kind of annoying, but because it's very good, but I think these more interesting combo play patterns can be interesting. Generally, they're not super. I was gonna say good. I mean, they don't really exist too much. Sometimes they're like terrible,
Right.
like Tatsugiri EX, but like but that's because only enough it actually is somewhat similar of a card, but the payoff just is not great. The downside is bad, even if it works. So and it's really hard to get to work. But like this unknown Prism Star, I think it's cool. You obviously do give it a prize,
Hmm.
which is like the balancing factor. And
Yeah.
so I feel like throughout the course of the game, it's going to be certainly not too powerful. It kind of allows you to stay in games, kind of like what you see with Force of Vitality. And again, there's that turn one clause there. And Force of Vitality, I think, is a pretty fair card. You look at Force of Giant Plants, even when it was in Standard, I don't think it was a super fair card. I didn't really play with it too much in Standard, or really at all, but um, I've seen it some, and it's
Yeah.
not super fair. Force of Vitality feels a lot more fair. So maybe that adding that turn one clause could be good. I'm not sure.
I mean, the best thing, and I don't know what the use case is, and obviously it's necessarily standard now, but a stage two that can attack with a good attack for one energy. That especially if you're trying to do it turn one, because now you don't have to Crispin. Now you can use a supporter to help get this set up, right? Which of course makes it life easier. So if you had a stage two with a nice one energy attack, um, that's probably the best use case for it, for really for any area, I would think. So. But yeah, like you said, the knocking itself out, you give up a prize. It's a good balancing act. It balances the card. I think without that, it definitely would be too powerful. I think it's an interesting card. I also don't think it's an overpowered card at the same time. So I think that they did a nice job designing this one.
Yeah, overpowered like in general, maybe potentially in some specific cases. Also, it kind of reminds me of the support
Yeah.
card in Wally, which actually was banned and expanded. Is currently not banned and expanded, which allows you to get a Pokemon evolution, essentially a stage one in play turn one, going
Yeah.
second, which is a good card, but I think a pretty fair card, and I think this card fits in pretty well with that. Honestly, like I think the design is super nice. Honestly, the attack is okay as well. 44 and I mean, it's not
Yeah.
very good, but like it could be worse. Um, I
Yes.
oftentimes because I see a lot of custom cards, and they they're as you were kind of saying earlier focused on their abilities, but they have an attack. I think his attack's fine. Maybe having it have more synergy with the ability could be cool, or I don't know. You don't need an attack on every Pokemon. I mean, every Pokemon does really have an attack, pretty much, but you don't actually
Yeah.
like need to do that. Like you look at like Meowth EX, and I mean you could use the attack. I don't think I've seen anyone do it, but like Pokemon like that are very much there for their ability. Like in standard, it doesn't really matter if they have an attack or not. So with custom cards, you could just leave it off.
Yeah, I mean the thing that would have ruined the card is if they put like a really powerful attack. If for one energy it does 200 damage, I would just
Yep.
ignore the card because at that point, obviously it's just way too much. So the attack is kind of a toss off, but for one energy, it does 40 isn't the worst thing. Retreat cost of one, all those things are okay. Obviously, if you start the card, that's where that's too bad. So, but that's a fair trade off too.
Yeah, it could be.
Would it be
Oh,
would it be better if it was from bench? I don't know. It's a very interesting trade off, the fact that it's from hand, though.
yeah, I was to say regarding that, you like if it had a better attack, like a decent attack, um,
Hmm.
then you need to decide between playing it and using the ability, which could be an interesting decision as well,
Yeah.
theoretically.
Right. But obviously the ability is like super
Yeah.
interesting. So the focus is the ability. So
Mhm.
yeah, nice
Um,
card here.
yeah, really cool card here. So what card do you want to go to next?
All right, gonna jump to a Whimsicott EX, which is by Marzipan. If I don't know if I got the pronunciation quite right, but so it's a EX Stage One grass type Pokemon, 250 HP, free retreat on it. It does Cotton Guard attack for 3 energies. Grass colorless does 130, and it takes 20 less damage from what takes 20 less damage from attacks for each energy in play. So that's actually potentially a big damage reduction there. So, but it's really the ability. So on it, although I misread the honestly that effect of the attack. So that's a bigger effect than I thought. But it's got the ability bargain. Once during your turn, you can search your deck for 2 different cards, reveal them. Your opponent chooses one to discard. You put the other into your hand, shuffle your deck. So a nice name, bargain, because you're getting 2 cards. Your opponent gets to choose which one to discard. They did a nice, it's nice that it has to be 2 different cards because obviously, if you need a boss and you just grab 2 bosses' orders, that would have kind of ruined the card there. So nice job by making it 2 different cards. Your opponent obviously has agency. I do wonder if it's a little too strong still, just because you could get 2 really good cards that are going to get you what you need potentially. Obviously, what you don't want to do is get 1 card clearly that you want to keep, 1 card that you want in the discard pile, because then your opponent's just going to do the opposite. So you're forced to. I guess you could use it also in a card that you want to get cards in the discard pile as well, and then your opponent has to choose which one to discard. In the keeping card, you don't care about as much, but generally, you're good doing it because there's 2 cards that you want to definitely play one of. So nice ability. Now it's once during your turn, so it's also is that too powerful that you can do it every turn once it's in play? Also, there's no limitation on stacking it, so I think you probably need some limitations. Should it be on play? Should it be only you can only use 1 bargain per turn? Some of those things. But what do you think about the card and the ability in general?
I think the ability, I will say, the attack is. I was just looking at this. So it's called Cotton Guard. We have seen Cotton Guard a bunch, and it generally is actually just reducing damage by like a fixed amount, which I think is what you originally read. It is here
Yeah,
by energy though, which is interesting, I guess. Again, it could be really strong. Could be this in play. I believe both yours and your opponents. Um,
yeah,
so that's quite a bunch theoretically, which is kind of cool, I suppose. But again, the ability, obviously, the focus of the card here. I was thinking about this because it is 2 different cards. You like mentioned boss, and I was like, oh well, you can then play like Lisa's Appeal and boss, search for both, and then get that card. Assuming Lisa's Appeal, guess what you want, which it probably does. If you don't know what
yeah.
guess basics, and then it confuses them. It's not like, I mean, it's worse than boss realistically, like a lot, but it's not drastically worse. It's just usually a lot. It's usually worse. So people don't play Lisa's Appeal. But then it is also getting rid of 2 of that effect in your deck, and also forcing you to play this weird effect. So I don't know. I feel like overall it makes you have some interesting decisions there, and makes your opponent have interesting decisions as well. It's not like a super difficult decision because I mean it could be somewhat difficult, but it's not like they're dealing with all this information that you have in your hand versus like when you're using like Dracloak, then oftentimes it can be a bit of a difficult decision because you have all these things to think about. So I like this card where your opponent like makes a decision. I'm trying to look for other cards like that. I see Swordwind and Shieldbert, and then Lieutenant Surge's Bargain. Lieutenant Surge's Bargain also has Bargain in its name. Not sure if that's a reference there. That card, if you don't know, it's in Standard. I actually recently played against this in Build and Battle, and it's a really
Oh
interesting
yeah.
card. It says you ask your opponent if he's planning to take a prize. If yes, then you do. And then if no, then the person who played Lieutenant Surge's Bargain draws 4. So it's an interesting effect-ish here, I guess. There's also Swordwind Shieldbert, which is really bad. It's your opponent. So you choose a trainer in your discard, and then you ask your opponent if you can put it into your hand, and then if yes, you get it. But if no, then you draw 3. So it's really bad. It's realistically like a worse draw 3, probably. You can't play it if there are any trainers in your discard, I'm pretty sure. It's just like not very good. But I think this card with like the decision making by your opponent is really cool. Um, and it's not, I don't know, like in some ways, obviously Pokemon is a game where during your opponent's turn, you're not doing too much. Adding a little more can be fun, and you can do stuff on your opponent's turn. I suppose the one thing you do consistently is when you get knocked out, you send something up, but obviously that's like going into your turn. And then
Right.
you also see, I don't know, certain effects that like switch out your opponent's active, I think is something you see. Is that the only other thing like that?
The switching,
Yeah, like rope, which we don't have as standard.
right. I'm sure there's something. There must be something, and there's some cards that do that in standard now, either
Yeah, there's
Pokemon with
repel, which
abilities or
is
something.
like that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean there are things like if they play judge, then you do something as
Yeah, but
well.
you don't make a decision. You
Right.
physically do something.
Correct. I mean they can knock something out too, like with dust. If they
Oh,
knock
that's
out your
true.
active, then you make a decision too.
Yeah, and that'd be like kind of during or
Yeah.
in the middle of your opponent's turn there, unlike with a knockout with an attack, which is realistically right before your turn.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, in terms of the attack, which I know is not the big part, but and then maybe it's too good because the attack part, because you have to have 3 energies to do it. You have to get it powered up, of course. Your opponent typically, let's say 2 is kind of typical. So now you're reducing by 100 damage. So that takes 350 to one shot you. So now you're not doing a ton of damage, but you are taking 2 shots. So I probably think that's a little too strong. The bargain's interesting though. Again, that's the focus to me. It makes probably some interesting deck building decisions because you probably need slightly thicker lines with some key cards because knowing you're going to have to bargain and lose some, right? So are you going to need one extra boss and one extra this? But of course, the more you do that, then you compromise other aspects of the deck. So I think you're gonna have to tweak how you build your decks if you're playing this, which I like that about it. And then the other thing, which I went to first, I think you've gone to that idea because what you said is thinking about like 2 different trainers, like 2 supporters or something like that. But it gets probably more interesting because it's if you give your opponent 2 supporters, they have a really good idea of which one's better for the situation. But if you give them like a supporter and an item, or you give them a trainer and a Pokemon, or one's an energy, all of a sudden you could go very different directions, and then your opponent has less idea which card to discard. So if you get it to be something where there's 2 very different cards, I think that's a more interesting situation because your opponent all of a sudden has less how it's not clear what the weaker card is, so you have two they're different but powerful options. That's probably what you'd want to do generally with this card, I would think, is present them with 2 very different things that makes it harder for them in their decision making.
Yeah, and it's kind of like you can also mind game it. I remember I was watching PTG Radio's video about mind gaming with Sword and Shieldbert, which doesn't work because um he was like, yeah, you're not gonna like trick your opponent into giving you like gust for game. Like they're not gonna do that because like you can't do that. So
Yeah.
but or presumably you can't. But with Whimsicott here, you could definitely like kind of again if in a situation if you get like an energy and like a supporter or something, they don't really know what's going to be necessarily what you're looking for there. So that's really interesting. I will say this isn't necessarily an issue with the card. It's actually something kind of similar with Explorer's Guidance. Explorer's Guidance is kind of similar actually, but obviously you make the decisions and you do all the stuff.
Right.
Conceptually it's different, but in practicality it has the same issue of or enough issue, but you're discarding the other card, right? So if
Right.
you get say you're playing Dragapult and you want like a Dracoloak and a Dragapult, you can just get both and you can like take one and then stretch the other one back. And then
Yeah.
it's not so interesting. What your opponent does doesn't like matter at that point really. So I think that situation could arise and be a bit boring at times.
Right. Like it would be an interesting case if like you present them a boss's orders and an unfair stamp. Right.
Yeah.
2 really good cards that are very different, and all of a sudden, like they know they have something vulnerable on the bench. And assuming it's not for game, if it's boss for game, obviously they got to take the unfair stamp, but or you have to discard the boss. But two things like that are different, but both really good. That's where it gets interesting. So I think it's a pretty good card. Like I said, I don't know that you should be able to do multiple ones on a turn.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about that. Maybe you're going to dig through your deck too fast, but I think having that ability might be just too strong in that case.
Yeah. I'm also thinking about this with like hide and sneak. You could get like 2 hide and sneak Pokemon. I mean, I don't think it's
Yeah.
super good. They're still slow, but it's an interesting Pokemon. Again, going back to the attack. you mentioned it, like you'll have 3 there, which again is like kind of expensive to attack with, and the
Yeah.
damage isn't that good, so I wouldn't say it's super broken. But again,
No.
you said like you're looking at 5, but then if you accelerate energies using like onto your board, because you're probably playing this with Teal Myself upon EX, right? I feel like
Right.
if you're attacking with it,
Yep.
and then you're just gonna get more energies on your board, and then you can pair it with Meganium,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so you're gonna have like 10 energies on your board, you're gonna be taking like no damage ever, and just be like invincible. Like I could actually see that very relatively easily happening.
Right, because you like hate you'll make fun of like the people that put Arboliva in those decks, but instead you put this in, which gives you a draw and this virtually unbreakable wall, so which would be pretty scary.
Yeah, but overall, I really like the ability. I guess I would say again regarding the attack and the ability, if they work together, that could be cool in some way. Um, Maybe interacting with your discard pile, maybe also theming wise,
Mm.
giving your opponent another decision. The attack feels to me kind of random. Like I mean, it feels fine on Whimsicott. Actually, the theming wise, Bargain on Whimsicott feels almost a little weird, but Cotton Guard and Bargain don't really have any reason to be on the same card, I wouldn't say. And also, Cotton Guard isn't generic enough to just be an attack you slap on there.
Okay. Yeah, probably a little more generic attack on it might just make it feel a little bit more fair. But but you don't think it's overly powered, the card, right? The bargain ability. You think
Um,
it's reasonable?
yeah, I mean, it is certainly not. I mean, I don't know, it's good. I wouldn't say it's like. I think it's within the realm of like, okay, if Pokemon printed a card like this, I wouldn't be like, wow, this is just like this ability is like the most broken thing ever. Again, you mentioned like multiple times per turn, but then you're digging through stuff. I think it's good, but I don't think it's necessarily super broken, though it is quite good.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, certainly if we're back in like the Gardevoir days, right? That would be scary where you have, you give them the psychic energy and you give them like, a good supporter, right? All of a sudden it gets a little tricky, right?
Yeah. I think in a lot of situations, it's going to be a really interesting decision for your opponent. One more thing, I guess, with things where your opponent makes a decision, when people are making decisions back and forth, it can cause the game to theoretically kind of bog down time-wise. It's not something I'm overly worried about with this, but also wanted to mention that.
Um, yeah. It's a lot of interactions, which gets IRL play time considerations becomes a factor
Yeah,
too
or in
in terms of
live.
practicality. What's that?
Or in live, if this was in live.
Uh, yeah, that's true. I
Like,
mean, aside from the fact that they couldn't implement most of these cards properly, but that's its own issue.
yeah, but also, like with live, I'm sure you've had times, especially when playing with, I don't know, if you force your opponent to make a decision in the middle of the turn, half the time they're like, they don't realize. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I like don't realize.
Right.
If I'm not like super locked in, right? As in like I'm kind of doing something else. It's not something that's that common, but regardless, I think it's time to move on to the next card,
Yes.
which I guess I'll go with. I'm trying to think what card I want to go. I didn't actually like fully plan this out. I guess I'll go with this Kecleon EX by Grim Thoughts here. This card is obviously another EX. It's a basic with 190 HP. It's colorless. That's attack Invisipunch. It does 30, 50 more if you have no energy in play, and it is free, which is fine. I mean, free attacks are kind of cool. I feel like Pokemon doesn't do. They don't really print, I was to say, powerful free attacks, obviously, but it was like good. Its attack
Yeah.
is obviously the only reason it's good as well. It only has an attack, um, but also it's not like it's not powerful in terms of like damage, right? It's like it's terrible in terms of damage. So
Right.
this isn't like amazing, but it's fine. And then we also does have two retreat, could be awkward, but whatever, as a balancing thing. But then you have
Yeah.
this ability, Keeper of Secrets, which is really interesting. If none of your bench Pokemon are face down, the next time you play a Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, let me put it face down. So I just realized I think there's like an issue with this card, a minor issue. Well, I don't know if it's a minor issue. It doesn't say when you use this ability. It's like when you play this Pokemon, or is it once during your turn? I think it's once during your turn. Um, but it's a little weird, or maybe it's.
What?
Oh,
I think
sorry,
it
never
applies
mind.
anytime.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, it
you
applies
may. I thought you
anytime you
had
play a
to.
Pokemon.
Yeah, I thought you
Okay.
had to. Never mind. So, regardless, if none of your Pokemon are face down, next time you play a Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may put it face down. Um, And then if that Pokemon is moved to the active spot, takes damage, or uses any ability, turn it face up. If a Pokemon is face down at the start of your turn, turn it face of your next turn, turn it face up. I think the wording should be when you play a Pokemon from your hand, you can play it face down if you have no face down Pokemon or something. I don't know. Maybe the wording's completely fine and I'm just being weird about it. But regardless, it's certainly not like, the idea is play you can have one face down Pokemon in play, which is interesting. It would need to be a basic, presumably, unless you have something weird using an ability, but then I guess it would get turned face up. So one thing slightly weird about this is what is using an ability mean necessarily? Like if you have an ability where it gets extra HP, but I guess it doesn't really matter until it like gets hit, and then it gets turned face up anyways. It's a really, really interesting ability here with Pokemon, like, obviously keeping a keeper secret's very fitting there because it is literally a secret that you're keeping from your opponent, hiding what your Pokemon is. And it gets, again, turned face up at the start of your next turn. So it can kind of allow you to like bluff here, and mess with your opponent. I don't know if this ability is good, I'm not going to lie, but it's really interesting in my opinion.
Yeah. Now the card was designed by Grim Thoughts. I don't know that you mentioned that.
I think I did.
So, okay, maybe you did. I don't always listen to you, so
maybe that's
you know how that goes.
But no, everyone watching this, you listen. You should subscribe.
That is true.
Clean transition.
You definitely should. But anyway, and if you mentioned it, a second shout out's fine too. So, yeah. So you could play this on an evolution though, right? You could evolve. Right? That's in the new evolution goes face down, correct?
I guess so. Yeah, that's kind of bad.
Well, yeah. I mean, the whole point is you're disguising something, and it has to stay on the bench because once it goes to the active spot, they know what it is. So
yeah, and it can't do anything. It can't use an ability.
Right.
I mean, it'll like turn face up.
If you use the ability and then you can use it, right? And then it turns itself back over.
Face up? What?
Yeah, you can use the ability, then you flip it face up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, unless you had an evolution that had multiple valid lines for that Pokemon, it wouldn't make any sense, right? It's really there for disguise.
Yeah.
So I assume it's primarily for evolution decks where, obviously you need multiple attackers. It needs to be that. It needs to be something where it's not obvious in the deck what cards you're going to be playing, right? If there's like a clear primary evolution line you're going with, then having this disguise doesn't help. I guess you could also maybe do it in a big basic deck, or any basic deck, and they wouldn't know. Like,
and you can
obviously
you can attach energy, right, without turning it up face up.
Yes, you could attach energy to it or a tool. Those things would be fine. And I guess actually, if you evolved it, it would not be turned face up technically. But that's problematic because then it would need to get revised for that too because you need to make sure they're evolving legally.
That's
I mean, unless you play the relic, you have the Relicanth that you can copy pre-evolution attacks. Your opponent just doesn't know what that pre-evolution attack is. That would be kind of funny there.
That'd be funny, but kind of stupid.
But
yeah, I guess that, and it's being copied, so you're not like that Pokemon's using the attack, so I guess it's not turned face up. You can't even like see the card anyways because it's underneath it. Technically.
No, I know, and anyway, so you'd have to turn it face up if you're evolving, I would assume, but you could do it with a big basic deck as well. Certainly, like also things like Dusknoir, Monkey Dory for decks that do that type of thing. Wouldn't know where to put the damage counters necessarily. Like if you put down a Pheasantipity EX, your opponent now doesn't know that that's what it is. You put it down the turn beforehand, right? They didn't knock you out, so you're not using the ability that turn, but you want to get it on the bench so you don't get judged or whatever. There's times you do that, so them not knowing what that is would have some value. Does it have enough value? I don't know. You also have weird things. I'm thinking like if your opponent's playing Frostlass, it puts damage counters on Pokemon with abilities. You're just going to have to take their word for it, which is probably problematic as well. Right? Certainly in a tournament setting, if you did this, you'd have to. Go on.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm almost wondering if it doesn't have the ability, like, and then it just wouldn't take the damage. You could say that as well, or you could say it has an ability. Oh, maybe it could give them
Right.
all an ability that they can turn face up, and then they take. I don't know. Also, funnily enough, it says when they take damage, it's turn face up, but not like when you put damage counters on it. I don't think so.
Right.
Frostlass or Monkey Dory or whatever wouldn't even turn it face up, which is doesn't seem right. I mean, yeah, again, the wording's a little. I think the wording is relatively fine, but it's like
Yeah.
it's complicated, right? So inevitably there's some
Y-
stuff that's going to be missed here.
Well, yeah, you're gonna need rulings on it, like because I assume if you knock the Pokemon was knocked out, you'd have to put it out of play.
Yeah, but it would get it
With
would
it.
get turned face up. Oh, like instantly knocked out?
No, well, if they put damage counters on it, though,
Oh
let's
yeah.
say,
I mean, it
like
feels
if
like
you
it
had a
should be turned
Bidoof,
face up with damage counters.
yeah, but that's not what it
No.
says here. So maybe it gets revised to that. I don't know. It causes weird situations, but but ignoring that, like you said, how valuable is it? It's primarily there to hide possibly basics, but really it's pre-evolutions. I'm trying to think. I don't know of any particular. I don't know where you're getting a lot of value from it. It's also, as you said, two retreat cost, which obviously there's air balloon and such. So, the liability of giving up two prizes, something potentially gets stuck there too till it gets knocked out. Um, probably, is probably not beneficial enough to want to play the card. Is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a liability there. I think the attack kind of helps it some there. But yeah, I'm trying to think of like I think the best use case, maybe the big basic thing, but then also with you mentioned evolutions, and I'm thinking like specifically when I was playing um with I mean you could even say like Dragapult, but I'll use the example of Charizard EX, Pidgeot EX. We have the two evolution lines, you have the two basics. Then you want to have two of each on your bench, but you often can't do that. So you could
Yeah.
Kecleon, you could buy Poffin, get down a Charmander and a Pidgey, and then you could with Kecleon's ability put down face down either a Charmander or a Pidgey. Your opponent now doesn't know which one um, they should go after because you want both of them already on your next turn, and so they
Hmm.
could either they could go after the face down one, but that's the one they don't want to go after because that's the one they definitely have a duplicate of. So they're kind of guessing there. And then theoretically, you could also bluff. You could like even do something like put a Meowth EX face down, I'm pretty sure, and then just not use the ability. And then just like bluff that you have something when you like don't. Obviously, that's pretty rough to do, using two Pokemon to do nothing. But
Right.
it is like funny. You could definitely have these weird bluff situations. Um, Playing with hidden information is pretty interesting. It's almost the last card where you're like, your opponent was having to decide what to do when they didn't know the cards in your hand, but they were making a decision for you was a similar idea. But I think this enables some really interesting scenarios. I don't know if it's like this is definitely a custom card that like pushes things I'd say a bit farther. Obviously like we see all these like weird rulings and stuff like that, but I'd say it's an interesting concept.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, disguising things is interesting. Like at times, if you have something in the active, you might slap down like a Pokemon that you don't have access to the evolution lines anymore, but just put the basic down face down so that also your opponent has some uncertainty. So something that is just useless to you, but creating some noise for your opponent. So I can see, and I think maybe control players might get more benefit of it if just making it that little bit more difficult. I'm not certain. So. Yeah, it's interesting. It does create a number of questions, so that it might get too complicated to actually implement. But and a very interesting concept here.
Yeah. Again, also not exactly sure how good it would be, but it is cool. So what card do you want to
Yeah.
go to next here?
All right, gonna go to an item card here, prize exchange.
Okay,
So
this one was submitted by Jake Garrett as well.
yes. So it's interesting what it does here. So you put an energy card attached to one of your Pokemon into your prize cards face down. If you do, you look at your face down prize cards and put a card you find there into your hand. You shuffle your face down prize cards. So because you shuffle it at the end because you don't want people to know where all the prizes are. Generally, right? It's the rare exception that lets you kind of organize them so you know where to pull from in the future. But getting cards from prizes is a big deal. It's always it's a bigger deal for control decks. Well, it's a huge deal for control decks that aren't taking prizes, but even for other decks too, getting something from the prizes helps. It lets you run thinner lines as well, so it definitely has, has value in a number of cases. So it's very powerful. Getting a prize card is a big deal. If you just put this in the prize cards and replace this with any one prize card, it would be definitely too powerful. So the idea is to balance it off. You have to take an energy, and not an energy from hand, but an energy in play. So getting energies in play is a big deal. So you're setting back your energy setting up by one turn, a big deal there, but getting a prize card potentially a big deal. So I think it's a pretty interesting card. It would make I think some good decision making of when to use it, when it has the value, when it's going to hurt you too much though.
Yeah. Also, pop quiz. Do you know what card this art's from? This is from an actual card. This art.
No, I don't.
Yeah, this is a legacy class. Oh, not classic, but it was a legacy. It's Energy Exchanger, which is actually like Pokemon communication, but for energy, which is funny, I guess. But regardless, figured
Okay.
that was worth mentioning there. But yeah, it's definitely
Alright, cool.
interesting as a payoff, or as like the downside of having to lose energy from play is sometimes it's not that bad with like Ogerpon, DMS Ogerpon EX. It feels okay.
Yeah.
Like getting any prizes, it's quite good. In most decks, you probably consider this. It's
Yeah.
not like broken. It's okay. I think it's pretty solid. You're looking to kind of get an extra attachment and get some value, which actually kind of reminds me of Legacy, or not Legacy, of Enriching Energy, which is a special energy that is mostly playing Alakazam, which is a card, or which is a deck that uses it on if it gets an extra turn of attachments, really. So it's interesting, really interesting card here. I think the downside is fair. I mean, you mentioned, if this didn't have the downside, and swapped itself out instead, I was went to Hisuian Heavy Ball, which was very good, but only got basic Pokemon.
Yeah.
And then there's also Gladion, a supporter that did this, like swapped itself with a card in the prize, which I love. I love Gladion. I think I might like this even more.
Yeah.
Gladion is good, but it's not a super powerful support in terms of like getting you actual stuff, in terms of like, kind of setting you up. So having it on an item makes it feel more like okay using. I mean, I don't know. I love Gladion. I'm not gonna lie, I love that supporter card, but yeah, I think this is, there's a lot of ways to accelerate energy, but it doesn't feel broken if you accelerate energy either. You still need to put some resources into using this, and the upside is okay. Sometimes it's really good, but that's when you've gotten unlucky. And then if you've gotten like normal luck, then it's going to be mediocre, though not terrible. So I feel like it kind of evens things out as well in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a balanced card because I feel like it's a deck that could go in a lot of decks as a one of, but it's not going to go in every deck, which is good too. You're not going to put it. It's a better fit for decks that are get the energy in play pretty well, right? Decks that are struggling to energy in play. If you're playing a deck like with a single prize energy attacker, where you're getting knocked out relatively consistently, like say Alakazam, which you're not really worried about your prize cards so much anyway, but you're attaching every turn, so you can't really do this, right? Unless you like played Crispin for your supporter, but you don't want to do that. So a deck
or Wondrous
like
Patch.
that where what's that?
Or Wondrous Patch, which is sometimes in those decks.
That's true. Yeah, you could do that, but you need some energy acceleration for, there are decks that rely on just manually attaching every turn. Doesn't work in those decks. You have decks like Munkidori decks, which generally that extra energy you need to get on Munkidori. So generally I don't think I'd want to, but you could use Munkidori's ability and then prize exchange that energy away too. So now I can see how it could go in a deck like that too. But now you're losing that Munkidori ability for future turns unless you have energy acceleration. So it's only gonna work with certain decks, not with other decks like Dragapult. You're doing the work to get two energies into play. So although you're not getting one shot, so then you'll have a later turn where you potentially could use this. So but I like the fact that it's not equal for all decks. Some decks can take advantage of it, even those that can though. It's not like it doesn't take them like the boost isn't so insanely great for decks that can use it that makes it unfair. So a very good deck, a very good card, getting being able to get things in the prizes. I like that a lot, and I think this is a pretty balanced way to do it.
Yeah, I like this card a bunch here as well. I think it's probably one of the simpler cards we've seen so far, and of the
Yeah.
ones like of the custom cards selected. But I think it's a pretty clean design and one. Yeah, I could definitely see it like in an actual set, and would actually like to see it in an actual set. Getting stuff for the prizes. Right now we have exchange ticket. Exchange ticket is not satisfying, I would say.
No, there's just too much randomness that you really need to have. You need a very strong need to get prizes without taking knockouts to want to play it. It's just a card I've stayed away from, and I think most people do too.
Yeah. Wait, so one question about that card. You played some Mutual EX. Did you play it in that or not?
I did not. I think I did that deck early on. I built it, and I kept the deck pretty straightforward. So
Okay.
I stay away from something like that.
Yeah, I think I net decked and it played it. So yeah.
All
But
right. So
yeah, I guess I'll move
yeah.
on to with that awkward segment to the next card, which I haven't decided on yet. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. I'll do this Love Disc actually. This one was submitted by Hanzi. This is a Pokemon with first of all it has an ability, or sorry, there's an attack called Sweet Kiss, which I guess is thematically cool. I guess like it makes sense. And then for one colorless,
Hmm.
your opponent may draw a card. That's like really bad. Like it's just it's not good. But that's
Yeah.
there. And then you have this ability Love and Peace, which is really interesting. During either player's turn before attacking, that player may use this ability. Then the player who uses this ability draws two cards. So it almost like works like a stadium, actually, now that I think about it, but like it can't be removed for play, and it can obviously be searched like a Pokemon. And I mean it's not a stadium, right? It's just like it's not a stadium.
Right.
It's interesting here. Like you turn like a basic that draws you two cards every turn. I mean, basically, if it drew you one card every turn, that'd be good, I imagine. But drawing two cards every turn is quite good, and yeah, it is good. But your opponent can also use it, which is really interesting. As like the downside there. I also really like things like this where it helps both players set up. Like I like, I guess Iono in that regard. Obviously, it can stop your opponent from setting up. But Love Disc is you only gonna be able to help them and help you as well. Like it's, I mean, theoretically you could like pair it with Mill or something weird like that, but this ability is super cool that your opponent can activate it.
Yeah. I mean, the attack, if it was your opponent has to draw a card, I think that then you could use it in something, but your opponent has the choice too. So if it's to their detriment, they would, so you're never going to use this attack, I would think, unless
Yeah,
you're really trying to outthink your opponent, which it seems unlikely
yeah,
that you're going to get them to make that wrong. The ability, the fact that your opponent can choose it, I don't think, as far as I know, that there's been a card like that, an ability like that in the game, as far as I know. Is that correct?
yeah. I mean, outside of stadiums, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I could be wrong.
Okay.
I'm not super familiar with like older cards, like super old cards. Some pretty wacky ones out there, but like I don't know. Love Disc definitely feels pretty unique in that regard. I mean, again, there are like some attacks where your opponent gets a choice, but that's
Yeah.
obviously different there. And again, same thing with like trainers, but I don't think with
Okay.
Pokemon like this. Speaking of the attack, I do think it should maybe be like have each player draw cards or something like that.
Yeah.
It could literally just be like the ability, but the attack could be the same thing. And I wouldn't have an issue with that. It feels, obviously it's kind of trying to be helpful to your opponent is like the idea, but this is a bit much.
Yeah. So, first two things. One, if any would listeners know of abilities that in the past that have let your opponent use it on their turn, do let us know in the comments because we definitely would want to hear about that. My concern is it too powerful? In that, like, obviously it benefits some decks more than others, which is what you want. It has to be. You have to have some decks with more of a more that gets more value. So, like, would this make Alakazam too good though? Because and
Uh,
it also you can stack it. So if you get three or four love discs in play, do you just walk away from the game at that point if you're up against Alakazam once they get these down?
no, I think it just like knock out all their Alakazams and then I know I feel like Alakazam does its thing. I mean, this will help with the consistency some. because
Yeah.
Sunspurs is kind of mediocre, but it's all right. And I feel like Alexam often takes big one shots, so just
Yeah.
play a deck that isn't as scared about that, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, Alakazam, this helps it, but I don't know. I don't think it's like super broken there. And again, you're able to draw 2 extra cards every turn against this. I mean, if your opponent plays for this, you can like then you're drawing a bunch of extra cards, and yes, you're not getting as much value out of it as them, but like now you're having access to like. I mean, I played against you at a pre-release, and I'm pulling in 7 times. That was bad, and then you had access to all your cards. Um,
Yeah.
so even if I mean the matchup was probably fine. I don't know what would happen if I hadn't a mulligans, but ultimately, give like having a lot more options is going to just be good. Just period, right? That's just good. So, playing
Yeah.
against this, you have this option to, obviously do more different things, right? So theoretically, it should be okay. Even obviously, though it is about benefiting a deck like Alakazam more. I mean, if your deck can't handle Alakazam at all, then maybe this card, like, I don't know. I feel like with or without Love Disc, it's somewhat similar.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So for most decks, the question is how often could you put this in a deck? Because you are helping your opponent an awful lot. So Um, I don't know that I would want. Obviously, the ability is really good. Draw 2 cards. If it was just draw, you could draw 2 cards every turn, and you could stack it. It would just be on a basic. It would be too good, right? I don't
Mhm.
think there's any doubt that that would be an unfair card, in that sense. But once your opponent can do it, all of a sudden, I get very concerned about it's too. I'm helping my opponent too much. So I'd have to have a deck that really can take advantage of it. Otherwise, I want to just try to keep a little more control for myself and limit my opponent a little bit more. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, I understand that, but I'm also going in the complete opposite direction where I'd probably put this in most decks because
Okay.
if you're in a situation where your hand's kind of dead, like currently in standard, I guess there's Meowth X to get you out of a dead hand with Pokemon Search, but this is Buddy Buddy Poffin searchable.
Right.
This is Pokepad searchable, and
Yes.
I mean, Meowth X is also a liability in a different sense. So obviously, yeah, it is helping your opponent there, but if I'm in a bad situation, I want to get Love Disc. And you don't really have an option, and Love Disc will be okay. It's pretty decent drawing 2 cards. Also, you get to draw the cards first, so you're kind of have more access to cards than your opponents from it. So it's
Yeah.
technically it's a little in your favor in that regard as well. I guess you could, now that I think about it as well, this is probably not very good. We could like Love Disc and like play a couple down, and then you could Air Zero Underdepths, and then you could like remove it, like fill up your bench and remove it, and then you get rid of the Love Disc so everyone can't use them or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also thinking if you like back in the days with
Scuba.
the neutralizing gas
Oh,
uh,
Wheezing.
ability wheezing, like if you all of a sudden if you did this, all of a sudden you'd hurt yourself if your opponent had it, right? So
Yeah.
it'd be kind of some funny interactions potentially there too, in that regard. So, but it's an interesting card. The trade-off is, I think it does give itself to some interesting decision making, which is kind of what makes a card like this. That's the fun of these custom cards.
Yeah, and I don't think it's like super complicated, despite the fact that which is in some sense reminds me of Alakazam EX, where that card, if you don't know it, attacks from the bench.
Right.
Super unique. People were like, "Wow, this is crazy," and it is kind of crazy. Honestly, kind of feels like a custom card, but in practicality, it doesn't play that differently. And sometimes that was actually boring. This card I don't think is boring, but like Alakazam EX isn't actually that complicated. It can be complicated a tiny bit from time to time, but it's for the most part fine. Um, this card seems pretty simple. Despite doing something super different, it's really simple, and I really like this design here.
Okay. And the fact that we have Pheasantipede EX means you have a lot of turns you're drawing 3 cards, so it's not, something like Love Disc drawing 2 cards isn't as game changed it would be without a card like Pheasantipede EX, right? Because we're used to being able to draw some cards. So it kind of makes it less crazy than it could be in different eras.
Yeah, I mean, and there's also like Drake Loke. In the past, we've had similar things as well, like Crobat V and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I think you're a really cool card. But where do you want to go next? As I guess our
Talk
last card.
about Yes, I'm going to talk about Muck, a stage one. We don't know who submitted it, right? Because I think they left your server, so
Yeah, I think they also
hopefully
deleted their account.
so they their whole Discord account is gone.
Yeah, I believe
You
so,
think?
but I could be wrong on that.
All right, so so if you're back and you just want to change your username or something, go back in 10 types server and let us know because I like this card a lot. So stage one Muck, it's an interesting card. It raises questions with it. So I will say so 130 HP darkness type Pokemon. An attack does 50 for 2. You flip a coin if heads your opponent's active Pokemon's poison. So nothing too exciting there. But then the ability Sticky Situation. Once during a turn, you may attach a Pokemon from your hand to this Pokemon. If this Pokemon leaves play, discard a Pokemon attached to it. So you can not. I didn't wasn't think wasn't realizing this, but you can actually have multiple Pokemon attached as well.
Yeah.
And then this Pokemon can use the attacks of any Pokemon attached to it. You still need the necessary energy to attack. So we had ones that can attack from the discard pile, copies attacks there, copies attack from the bench. This one, you're attaching the Pokemon like a tool in essence. And although if something tool scrapper or something like that wouldn't get rid of the Pokemon, I don't think you'd have to shut off the ability to lose those attached Pokemon. I guess if you turn off the ability, the Pokemon would fall off. Although I guess you'd need a ruling to know that for certain.
Yeah.
I think that's the logical conclusion though. Um, so you can copy attacks from any Pokemon attached. So it lets you attack with Rulebox Pokemon. Obviously, we're in the Dragapult world, so I always think of that first. So now you attach a Dragapult, which this is a stage one. So in a sense, so the Pokemon attach is a stage two in essence. Dragapult is a stage two, so you're not slowing the evolution of Dragapult down. Obviously, Drake looks good, so you probably want some Drake looks in play as well, probably. But now I'm attacking the Dragapult's attacks. Same energy, so not a big deal there. On a single prize Pokemon, which I think makes it better. Now, I have less HP, so now I'm getting one shot. So that's the big difference with Dragapult. I'm not getting one shot generally, at least hopefully not if I'm playing Dragapult. Now I'm getting one shot, so I got to power it up every turn, but I'm only giving one prize. And of course, we're in a Mega World too, so I attach Mega Pokemon. Which are designed to give up 3 prizes for balance. So now I can attack with a Mega's attack, and only risking it one prize. So I'm concerned it's going to get too powerful, but I think it's a pretty interesting card.
Yeah, I agree completely with all of that. I do want to quickly mention the attack here. Poison Fang for Darkness
Mm-hmm.
Colors 50 on a coin flip. Poison. Honestly, a pretty boring attack here in my opinion. I don't think it really needs it. And actually, I said all Pokemon have an attack, but look at Mewtwo and Mew.
Okay.
Mewtwo Mew Tagging GX
Right.
technically has an attack, but it's a GX attack, so you can use it and then you can't attack again. So it doesn't have a regular
Yeah.
attack. And then you look at Ditto
Right.
from Pokemon Go, and this actually doesn't have an attack, and has a very similar or a relatively similar ability there. So
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely interesting. Also, I'm looking at. Well, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Okay, well, um, anyways, so the ability though, obviously very good for copying these multi-prize Pokemon, turning them into single prizes where the
Yeah.
HP is meaningful. Um, also with stage twos, technically it's like the same speed. You can get stage two and play turn two. You can get in the muck and play turn two, but you don't need to rare candy
Yeah.
there. Also, again, you mentioned you could have multiple Pokemon on. Well, you could only attach one per turn, but you have multiple mucks. You can attach
Right.
one or two Pokemon to, sorry, like one Pokemon to each muck, and then the next two you can attach a second Pokemon to that muck, presumably the one's getting knocked out. So
Yeah.
you have some really interesting options as toolbox stuff. It is still like a good chunk of pieces. You need the basic, the Grimer, you need the muck, then you need the other Pokemon. So it is 3 cards, you need the energy. I think this card is probably too powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, I'd say it's good. It's just good. In some ways, it's kind of simple. It's like or I don't know if simple, but like clearly a deck build around, like Mewtwo and Mew,
Yeah.
where you have a bunch of different options, but still this is the main Pokemon here. It is also Darkness. I mean, you can use it with Toxtricity, but you can't use it with Wondrous Patch, or there's some things you can use it with, and some you can't. So it opens up definitely some interesting things. I'd love for a card like this to be printed into the game. I don't think it necessarily will. I don't know. I mean, I kind of want it to. It's been a while since we've seen an attack like this. We've seen like Ensor, EX, and a few different ones, but they've been kind of like just not all that impressive. Mewtwo Mew was good. Okay, when I say all that impressive, all that like interesting, and Zoroark EX is certainly fine, but I think this card's really interesting. Again, probably a little like it's very unconditional, maybe a bit too
Mhm.
much so.
Yeah, a couple thoughts. First, the way the card is, it's interesting. I think it's too powerful. You could get together with a friends group and put just make say this is a card you can use, right?
Yeah.
And make this that like the theme for that day, which I think could be fun. I two things. When I have a question, would Pokemon attached, are they considered Pokemon in play?
No.
Right,
Well,
because
no,
there
no,
are
Muck's in play, and yeah.
the others are not in play. Okay, I
Or
just
like
because I don't know that
abilities,
we
or
well or like damage based on Pokemon in play for their
yeah, that'd
attacks.
be crazy if you'd like 500 damage to Terrapagos or something like that. That'd be kind of
Well,
funny.
you see what I'm saying though,
Yeah, no,
right?
they're I'm afraid
So
they're not in play.
okay, I don't know if there's like a general rule if you need a
We've
special
seen
rule for it.
uh we saw the Klefki. This card is not banned, but maybe it should be banned. I don't know. In expanded, essentially you can like attach it as a tool. Um,
Okay,
it's
right.
super confusing and created an infinite combo with unknown damage that then got banned. So
Hmm.
the unknown, not the Klefki, but the Klefki was an
Yeah.
important piece. So yeah, definitely weird. This guy's so much text. It's also like not great. I guess I don't know. It's like walls megas, but not like the current
Okay.
megas.
The old. Okay. And then one thought, last thought on this card. I think it's too powerful if it was printed the way it is. But what if to make it balanced? What if you made it a stage 2 Pokemon? Therefore, the cards you're attaching to it are stage 3 Pokemon essentially, which might be a more fair situation.
Um, yeah, I was also thinking about that. I think this card is. I think it's better as a stage. Oh, obviously it's strong as a stage one, but I think it's
Hmm.
closer to balance as a stage one than a stage two. I think if it was a
Okay.
stage two, it'd probably be bad. Because a stage one, it's a little too good. But I think as a stage, like in terms of being interesting competitively, I think I like it more as a stage one than a stage two.
Okay.
I think it again is probably a little too strong, but the card being interesting and being a little too strong is fine. Um, Dragapult I think is a little too strong, but is interesting. So in some sense
Hmm.
that's like kind of okay. If Dragapult was like a super boring deck, then it'd be a huge issue. It's still being a bit of an issue being too strong. It's not like it's somewhat interesting to play with. Playing against it's not amazing. I don't know if playing against this would be amazing either, but overall, I think this is better as a stage one design wise.
Yeah, it probably needs some modification just to nerf it a little bit. I'm not sure what the logical thing is, but something in the ability to nerf it. I like I said, I don't know what. Maybe you
Yeah.
could make it so you can't recover it from the discard pile or something. I don't know if that would really do it enough to really swing it. Actually, it probably would because it's a single prize attacker. So if you're using like a Mega's attack, but now you can't attack with it 5 or 6 times, getting knocked out each time, right?
Yeah.
So maybe
Yes.
that would help with you. I don't know. It just needs a little something to make it a little less. It is I like what it allows for the game. Though. I think it's really fun. Just a little concerned about the strength of it, but a really fun idea. I think.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if it was a two prizer, I'd like it more. Um,
Hmm.
Having more HP, then you can potentially survive a hit more likely, and then get multiple Pokemon
Hmm.
on and have different attacks there. But obviously, you now aren't turning these three prizes into one prizes, or these two prizes into one prizes. You're
Right.
turning these Pokemon into two prizers, which feels I think more fair. But you can still do. You're not making it harder to set up. Um, in some sense, you mentioned like the removing the recovery aspect. Doing a two prize thing actually kind of does something similar where you're only attacking a handful of times with these Pokemon because you are a two
Hmm.
prizer, and raising the HP accordingly. I think it makes the
Yeah.
game feel less swingy because Mewtwo Mew, some of the builds, I mean, welder builds are swingy and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, it also then would allow you, if it becomes a rule box Pokemon, to like a two prizer, I would think, it allows you to attack with single prize attacks too, would be more tanky, right? Because like I would playing some Mad Party Expanded occasionally. I don't remember the Pokemon right now, but there was. the rule box Pokemon, probably a GX,
Yeah, Marshadow.
um, Marshadow GX. So
Which, by the
so
way, Marshadow
something
has
that
150 HP on a two pricer, so it's not
exactly,
that
that's as
tanky.
tanky as you need, right?
Well, because
But sometimes
the main attacker on the deck has 40 HP, so
exactly right. So it's the difference, right? So there are times that, and it was hips for weakness too. That was
yeah.
probably the bigger thing. But like you have some, like you were playing some of the the new Slowpoke, right?
Uh,
Um,
yes.
is that the right
Y-
one? So
yeah.
so like if
Okay.
you could copy that, but all of a sudden you're not getting one shot because of it. Things like having a it would be nice that you could take a three prizer, reduce it down to two prizes, but you also take a one prizer. It's two prizes, but now you've upped the HP. I think I'd like that that kind of a fun thought with the card.
Yeah, and this is kind of what we're seeing with the new BUEX from Celebration or 30th Celebration,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, it's like not that high HP, and it only copies Pokemon in play, so it's like way worse. Um, it's interesting, kind of, but I don't think it's going to be good. Maybe as a situation like Tech Piece in some decks, but I really like this design. Again, I think as a two price it would work a bit better though.
Yeah, yeah, a fun card, maybe a little tweaking, but it certainly, like I said, it could be interesting to see what it does, and certainly with like a friends group playing with this muck with the sticky situation ability, I think would make for a fun afternoon too.
Yeah, yeah, but overall, I think these custom cards are good. I obviously, they're in my Discord server. But I mean, you like, I mean, you're not as much of a custom card person, but what are your thoughts overall on these cards?
I think they're good cards. I think that they're interesting in what they do. They're reasonable cards. Like a lot of times I see custom cards, they're like crazy bonkers cards. Someone says, "Wouldn't it be great if I could, had 1,000 HP and I did 1,000 damage and I could draw as many cards on my turn as I want?" Right? And they make that card. It's like I'm like, okay, that's not interesting. But these are good, well thought out cards. So really, really hats off to everyone in the cards they produced.
Yeah, and there's a bunch more in like my Discord server, which you could check out if you want. I believe they're pretty much all there. Um, I'm looking like it's kind of my Discord server's a little messy. I have like all these different channels because I've changed it a little bit over time. But I am gonna, we're probably gonna add these to the Hall of Fame. I don't know which ones I'm gonna add. We might talk about this after. I don't know, but yeah, I think it's like these cards are cool, and there's definitely a bunch more that we can get to that I'm considering as well. I might do in another video, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that on my channel, 10 Types, and also check out Uncommon Fossils channel and subscribe there for other content. But make sure you like, as I said, as well, and subscribe. And just check out our channels. You can also listen to us on podcasting platforms, though. But if you want to comment, leave that on our YouTube channels. But we hope you all enjoyed, and as always, we're excited to see you in the next episode.
Take care.